Hey, what is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the first episode of Thread Count. And what Thread Count is it is a deep dive, kind of, I guess you could say, essay style, documentary style video series that I've started to really discuss the fashion industry as a whole, whether that's luxury fashion, fast fashion, influencers in fashion, just fashion in all facets. Really excited to be coming back to YouTube because for a while I hadn't really thought of what I wanted to do, and I was seeing, people are tired of fashion hauls and people don't want to see, people in influencers and all this stuff like that talk about fashion and overconsumption and things like that. And so I really wanted to figure out how am I going to come back to YouTube, because I really do enjoy making content. It's just been a while since I have, because I was focused on likes and views and what am I going to post and how am I going to make myself stand out compared to other people. But now that I've come up with a concept, I'm really excited. So in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the issues with luxury fashion. You saw in the thumbnail, luxury fashion used to be glamorous, it used to be high-end, it used to mean something, and now luxury fashion is, things like Balenciaga collabing with Crocs and all of these logos on $1,500 t-shirts, and you really start to wonder, okay, is luxury dying? Is it, where is it? What's really happening with it? And so in today's video, we're going to discuss all of the ins and outs, and I'm going to give my opinions towards the end of the video on really what is luxury fashion in today's day and age. Okay, so first I'm going to go over what luxury used to look like. So if you think about what luxury used to look like back in the day, back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, brands like Chanel, Gucci, Tom Ford's era, Gucci, YSL, and a really crafted experience versus today where you just see things where people are just thrown, bags and shoes and clothes and everything has just become an over consumed mess, versus back then, it really meant something to be able to save your money and save up for a Chanel bag, or put a couple $100s into a nice jacket or a nice coat or a suit for work. And now luxury to me is defined as how many clothes you have, how big is your closet, oh my god, look at how many Hermes Birkins I have, look at how many pairs of Louboutins I have. And it's really, to me, lost its touch, and I kind of feel like we're slowly, like, luxury is up here and it just seems like it's slowly starting to sink because there's all of this, there's just too much noise in the luxury fashion space and just the fashion space in general. So that's one of the things that I feel needs to be addressed, is how do we get back to what luxury used to be instead of what it is today. Now going into my next point, I want to talk about how luxury is defined as of today. So oftentimes, if you were to go on any social media platform, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever, you would probably most likely see influencers with mile-high closets, tons of shoes, tons of bags and purses, tons of watches, jewelry, just an overwhelming amount of excess. And one of the things that I feel is lacking in the real fashion space is people who buy with intention instead of people who buy for attention. So one of the things that I like to do when I purchase something is that I always like to try and find something. If I'm going to pay a higher price, say I'm going to buy something from a Neiman's or Saks, I try and make sure that I'm buying something that I know is going to give me cost per wear. It's going to give me something that I'm going to use year after year. I'm not going to buy this one piece that I'm only going to take out once a year, every couple of months, every few years. You really want to buy something that is going to last you versus buying something because it's a trend, because it's something that everybody has, because it's the quote-unquote it bag, because everybody needs this in their closet, that kind of sort of thing. And I feel like because we're in such a digital, fast-paced environment, a lot of times you get caught in and you get looped into the whole need of, if you don't have this in your closet, you're not doing fashion right, or if you're not doing this, that, and the other, and you get sucked into that feeling of FOMO, that fear of missing out, because you're being told by all of these people on all these different social media platforms, especially on TikTok with TikTok Shop. Don't get me wrong, I like TikTok Shop. I've bought things from TikTok Shop, but I don't necessarily feel the need to go on TikTok Shop and say, oh, I need this, I need that. Oh my God, look at that. Oh my God, look at that. Just because somebody told me. And that's one of the things that I feel with fashion today. Everybody is a fashion girly, everybody is a fashion expert, but the real issue is that how many of these people actually know what it takes to produce a collection of clothing, to produce a fashion show, to produce a line of clothing, versus somebody who's just saying, oh my God, I like this and this, that, and the other, and oh, you need this because this is so cute, and oh my God, you need this because this celebrity or this influencer made it their it bag for the season. And it's one of those things where how much of that is being fed to you versus how much of that are you actually receiving as advice. Now, I'm not saying that you can't try new things. I'm not saying that you need to only have all black in your closet and that's it. But if you're really going to become somebody who's interested in fashion, do your research, learn the process, learn how things work, learn what things cost, and that sort of thing. And don't let necessarily others or let the world of fashion consume you, because at the end of the day, you don't want to look at what you have and say, well, half of this stuff I can't even wear because it's, only for special occasions, or it costs me so much money, so I can't just wear this to work, or I can't wear this going out with friends to, the local bar or to a club because it's spent so much money on it. And then you really limit yourself on what you can and can't wear. The problem with how a lot of these luxury brands, for example Chanel, are charging nearly 10 times more for bags, but the quality is going down. An example I want to show to you is that in 1990, now granted, this was some time ago, was around $1,200 for the classic Chanel bag. I'm gonna pop a picture up on the screen. It's a bag everybody wants. It's one of those things that if you are a Chanel girl, guy, whatever, and you want to have a Chanel piece, this is typically the standard bag that everybody wants to have. Now it is almost nearly $10,000 or more to get a Chanel bag from Chanel today. How is that making sense, or how is that even possible when quality is going down? Countless people have talked about how they've invested money into these bags and how their gold hardware is falling off, how the stitching is coming undone, how a lot of the materials are being skimped on because the brands are cutting corners to save on their costs to produce these brands overseas. It makes no sense.
Okay guys, let me tell you about how my brand new beautiful Chanel purse broke within 2 weeks of me having it. So the purse has a top handle, but it also has this chain, and I was wearing it yesterday and the chain completely came off the whole purse. I just want to say I'm a little bit disappointed because this is the most beautiful bag and it should not be breaking within 2 weeks of having it, especially considering how expensive this bag was. Those of you who know that it was just very, very expensive, and I'm heartbroken. So let's take it back to the store and see what they say.
Another example of this is in the fine jewelry space. An influencer I recently saw was talking about how she got a classic piece from Van Cleef & Arpels, the Alhambra bracelet, and how shortly after having the piece, the gold started rubbing off, there was a lot of damage, there was a lot of etching that was coming off, and she had talked about and discussed the process of going back to the store and how she was treated, how the manager didn't want to believe her, that she was blaming her for trying to come up with excuses. Oh, maybe it's the lotion you wear, maybe it's perfumes, fragrance oils getting on the product. Regardless of the fact that even if she was constantly putting lotion on her hands and dousing herself in fragrance, there is no reason why a bracelet that costs nearly $10,000 or more sometimes is going to do that shortly after buying it. And it's one of those things where you really wonder, are these brands doing what they say they're doing? And then another problem that I wanted to address is that now Fashion Week all across the country, all across the world, has become a game of a celebrity, has become a game of influencers, and has become a game of popularity. I'm somebody who has attended Fashion Week, but also shown at Fashion Week a few times. And the number one thing that I have noticed over the course of the past, I would say 3 to 5 seasons, is that every front row nowadays is filled with just popularity. Whether it's an actor who's, has a campaign or has a contract with a major fashion house, or whether it's an influencer who is in partnership with Dior or Chanel or Gucci, sitting on the front row and, with the phone, watching the runway show, posting it immediately after the show to their followers. I'm not saying that certain people can't be on the front row. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be just exclusively to certain people. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that I feel that with Fashion Week, it should go back to the way that it used to be, when journalists, publications, and press got those front row seats because they were the ones reporting on the news, reporting on the trends, and reporting and telling the people, us, what was going to be the next big thing in fashion.
This is all very theatrical, but you don't come to Terry Mugler for a sweater and a skirt. You come for the Paris silhouette, the drama, the boldness, and the integrity of his own vision.
Another thing is that the clients, these people who spend tens of thousands, upwards of millions of dollars a year with their favorite fashion brands, should be able to have priority access to those front row seats at Haute Couture Week, at major fashion shows, because they are the ones that are really funding this industry. Let's face it, because what is somebody who has millions of followers going to bring? Sure, they may bring some clientele, sure, they may bring some influence because of these, big numbers, but out of that majority of a million, say 250,000 of their followers can actually afford to, afford a brand like a Gucci or a Prada or a Dior, but how many of them are actually turning those views into dollars for those companies? So I feel like it would be better off to have somebody from a major publication like a Vogue, like a Harper's Bazaar, like these companies that really are at the pulse of what fashion is, be the ones to say, this is what we're shown, these are the prices, and this is where fashion is going, versus having these people who barely even know how to put two needles together, a needle and thread together, and have them say, oh my God, I'm at Fashion Weekend, oh my God, I got dressed by Dior and this, that, and the other, and oh, this is just so amazing. Yes, that's amazing, but you actually know what it takes to go into the whole production process of producing a fashion show, casting models, paying people to sew the clothes, paying people and vendors to supply the materials and things like that, to conceptualize these collections that we like to see on the runways. How many of these people actually know what goes into making a full collection? 90% really don't. Okay, now that I've talked about all of the problems, what is the solution? So I personally feel that less equals more. You do not need to have 25 pairs of shoes. You do not need to have every single designer bag in every single color. You do not need to have a storage unit or storage units like some celebrities have of clothes just sitting in there collecting dust. You need to buy with intention and not for attention. That is my theme and message for this channel, for this series. You do not need to buy something simply to get noticed, to get views, to get attention, to attract people to you. Dress the way that you want to dress, that makes you happy, that makes you feel comfortable, that makes you feel good in the clothes that you have on. Like for me, I love black and white. I love pops of color, prints and patterns and all of those sorts of things. But I'm not going to simply go and try and find something or buy something simply because a fashion influencer or because somebody told me, oh, this is the bag. If you don't have this, you're missing out. It's okay to miss out on some things. Not everything works for everybody. Not everybody needs to have everything. It is okay. Another solution is buying secondhand, especially if you're gonna buy something designer. Try and buy something that you know is vintage. Try and find and source vintage goods, vintage clothing, vintage bags and accessories, because a lot of the time those qualities are going to still uphold even in today's day and age. You may think, okay, well, this bag is, 40 years old, but if the quality's better, if the leather is still holding up, if it's better material, if it's better quality, you know that at least you're going to have a bag that's going to last you versus somebody buying a bag I'm gonna say it, like a Chanel bag, and they're complaining about the stitching coming off when they've paid upwards of $10,000 for a bag, when you can get a bag vintage resourced for maybe $2,000 or $3,000 if you look hard enough, and you end up having a bag that is classic, that is going to last you, and that is timeless. Being more ethical about how you buy from independent designers, buy you know, things that are really timeless and not necessarily trendy. Sure, you can have some things that are on trend, whether it be a color or a certain, you know, material or something like that, but really trying and buy things that are going to be timeless. One of my favorite patterns and like textures is houndstooth, and I also love leopard print. I personally feel like leopard print is a neutral. You can put on a leopard top and some black jeans. You can do a leopard dress with a blazer over it. There are so many ways to wear certain statement patterns, like polka dots, like stripes, like how I'm wearing this turtleneck. I got this turtleneck last fall from Target before the boycott, and it's held up really well. Sure, it's, you know, a little bit more of a budget-friendly option, but if you take care of your clothes, you know, certain items and special pieces, take them to the dry cleaners, you know, don't be afraid to, you know, invest in getting some things altered and things like that. Another perfect example, this turtleneck is a little loose in the top because I've worn it. It's been a little worn out. I have a clamp in the back. I'm going to share some secrets. I have it clamped in the back so that it looks as seamless as possible. There's little ways and tips and tricks that you can do things that are really going to make you look better, make you feel good, and then that way you know that, okay, if I'm going to put up some money into this, I know that I'm going to get a return on my investment. And then another thing I want to express is don't necessarily follow trends. Don't necessarily feel like because everybody is talking about something, you need it. Perfect example. I personally love Labubus. Not everybody loves Labubus. I think they're cute. Some people think they're the spawn of Satan. But I know that for me, I have a couple that I share. My mom and I share them. They're cute. We love them. But you don't necessarily need to have towers and towers of them sitting in your room, or, you know, if that's not your thing, or if you're somebody who really likes Crocs. I personally don't like Crocs. They just don't work for me. My feet don't look good at them. But if you're somebody who really likes Crocs and you want to have every iteration and every collaboration with them, go right ahead. But what I suggest is if you're really going to invest in a trend, make sure that it's something that's going to be trendy over time and not just right now, because we're in an ever-evolving world, especially with fast fashion. A trend could be here this season, this summer, and then you look up and 6 months from now it's like nobody ever talked about it, as if it never existed, and it's sitting in some landfill somewhere piling up. So that's basically my solutions to the fast fashion and just the fashion problem overall. So to close out, I personally feel like luxury isn't necessarily dying. It's just buried right now under the noise of influencers and fast fashion culture and pop culture, and just it's become so it's like almost like it's like stuck in between all of these, you know, different things that it's struggling to get back to where it was. And there's a lot of great different brands and a lot of different designers that are really doing quality, luxury, tailored, and just overall amazing pieces. But then you have brands like, I'm sorry, Balenciaga releasing $1,000 t-shirts and hoodies and sweatshirts and having scandals like, I don't know, I'm just gonna pop it up on here so I don't, you know, risk getting demonetized or anything like that. But, you know, having things like that and campaigns, and then 6 months later, people acting like it never happened. So my thought is that it's gonna take some time, especially in the post-COVID world. Fashion overall has suffered, the way that we buy things, the way that we see things, the way that we consume things, and I really encourage you not to feed into the noise. Just try and be more intentional. So that's all I have for my first video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to like, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. And if you have any video suggestions, I would love to hear from you. Be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys next time on Thread Count.